A white police officer in North Charleston, South Carolina was charged with murder after a video surfaced showing him shooting in the back and killing an unarmed black man while the man ran away. The officer said he had feared for his life because the man had taken his stun gun in a scuffle after a traffic stop. A video, however, surfaced showing the officer firing 8 times as the man, Walter L. Scott, 50, fled. I wasn't going to discuss this tragic event because it's such a racially charged issue. And while issues of race are very important, I didn't create this channel to discuss racial issues. But I saw a Facebook post of this video that had gone viral, and there was this young black man who had described how his encounter with the police during a traffic stop in this same town. And the gist of it was, and I'll put a link in the description box to the video, the gist of it was that he complied with the officer's request, he didn't cause any trouble, he made sure his hands were visible, so on and so forth, and therefore he survived the encounter. Now, I'm glad this law-abiding young man survived his encounter with law enforcement. I hope he lives a long and prosperous life. I too have survived encounters with law enforcement, but many others have not been so fortunate. There seems to be this misconception that if you're not breaking the law, and if you comply with police officers' instructions, you will not end up on the business end of a gun or be subject to brutality. And I can tell you from first-hand experience that this is not true. And what's really scary is the pervasive view that, quote, non-compliance for any reason is a justification for brutality and murder. I think this is part of a larger issue that affects MGTOW and non-gynocentric men in general. That guy T touched on it back in January. I'll post a link to that video in the description box as well. This could negatively impact our ability to go our own way, to peacefully protest laws and policies that undermine our civil rights as men and our civil liberties. To a certain extent, we may be a socially segregated society, but we are all still connected. We live in a state of symbiosis. What affects one segment of our society will eventually spill over to all of us. Left unchecked, this problem will spread to wider society, not just a black community. And anyone who is perceived as being, quote, non-compliant with police officers' instructions will end up threatened with incarceration and or brutal violence, even if they've broken no laws. Then and only then will there be an outcry from citizens as a whole, but then it will likely be too late to do anything about it. Walter Scott was a father. Walter Scott was a son. Walter Scott was a brother. Walter Scott was a human being. And Mr. Walter L. Scott was a man. Mr. Scott's funeral was yesterday, and I can only imagine the grief and pain his mother felt as the lid of the casket closed on the face of her son. The sense of loss, grief, and pain his children are now suffering due to their father's death must be immense. My heart goes out to them most of all. And the fallout of losing their father under those circumstances, the image of seeing him gunned down in the back by a police officer will likely leave them with psychological and emotional scars that we can scarcely imagine. But I doubt we will see any videos addressing how the family is coping with their loss and grief. Rest in peace, Mr. Walter Scott. You're free now.